Welcome to AutoToday. My name is Bayan and this is the new Citroen Basalt, and what sets it apart is the fact that it is an SUV coupe and it marks the entry of the SUV coupe into the mass market. Of course, a few days down the line we will have the Tata Curve and we'll leave the link of the review here because we'll be driving it soon. But because this is the first, let's jump into the design and tell you what sets an SUV coupe apart from the rest of the SUVs in the space. We'll start at the front, and as you can see, the SUV formula is still pretty much in effect. Of course, being a Citroen, you get the double chevron, but I love the way that it flows across the length of the bonnet and looks really good. It gets an X-shaped DRL with half the DRL along the bonnet line and half the DRL set into the headlamp, which is bumper mounted, and I think that looks really cool and adds to the cohesiveness of the front, especially when you look at it from far away. You do get LED projector headlamps also on this. Now moving to the side, we'll get a sense of the coupe style roofline. Now the Basalt is based on the same platform as the EC3, but it's got longer. The wheelbase is now 2651, which is the longest in its class. It's also a significantly long car, measuring from nose to tip at 4.3 meters, which is pretty incredible considering that it's based on the same platform as the C3, the C3 Aircross and the EC3. Now, the main point, of course, is this sloping roofline, which tapers towards the end of the car and looks really cool. This is the point where SUV meets coupe, and I think it looks set apart and does bring that sense of specialness to the SUV segment. And of course, in profile, you're going to notice these boxy flared wheel arches, and I think they look really cool. And they house a 16-inch tire, 205/60 R16s. They're pretty chunky and do a decent job of filling out the arches, although you can't help but feel that 17-inch tires would have done slightly more justice to the size of the Basalt. Now let's move to the rear and check out how this roofline flows into the boot. Now the rear section of an SUV coupe is my favorite bit because you get this chonky rear end, which really adds to the substance value of the car. Of course, the Citroen Basalt gets wraparound LED tail lights that look really cool and flow seamlessly almost into the boxy flared arches. I really like that design element, and I love that the way the roofline comes down into this four spoiler kind of effect along the tailgate. I think it looks really cool. I wish, of course, there was body colored bumpers here, but the black bumpers do add to the rugged appeal of the Basalt. And of course, you get PureTech badge on the 1.2 turbo, which you will not get on the naturally aspirated version. But I think overall, even from the rear, you get a really cohesive design. And what's best is that underneath this, you get a 470-liter boot, which is more than usable for most situations and family getaways. And now you're joining us in the cabin of the new Citroen Basalt, and the first thing you're going to realize is that it's quite a nice place to be. Citroen have used contrasting textures, colors and interesting shapes to make the cabin look and the cabin experience overall a whole lot better than it used to be. Now, I love this gold texture that runs along the center frame of the dash. Of course, being a Citroen, there are some hard plastics. The plastics on the top of the dash and below the eyeline are subpar. They're quite hard and they don't feel great to touch. But there is this silver insert which does add some character. I love the way the aircon vents have been shaped. Of course, you do get plenty of features as well, including a wireless charging deck down below, a little storage in the middle. You get your automatic climate control with an auto function. And of course, the piece de resistance, you get a 10.25-inch touchscreen infotainment system with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. There is also a digital instrument cluster which is cleanly laid out and looks neat, but does look a little bit under the quality that we start to expect from this segment. Now you do get steering mounted controls and the steering feels quite nice to touch, although I don't like the fact that they've gone back to the hard plastics on the center for the horn. But that's about it from the cabin. I do like the way the white interiors look. And once we are done driving, I'll take you to the back seat and show you what it looks like. But now, of course, the most important part, it's time to get driving. Now, this particular variant that we are driving is the 1.2-liter turbocharged version, which makes 110 horsepower and is mated with a 6-speed gearbox. So let's get rolling and see how it performs. Now, of course, this is the manual 6-speed. You will get a 6-speed automatic as well as an option with this car. But the manual itself, the gearbox is really nice to use. It has nice short throws. One could have hoped for a slightly lighter clutch. But that's about it as far as things that you can take away from the driving experience. Overall, this is a very nice car to drive. The engine is also plenty responsive despite being a 3-cylinder. It has a pretty decent level of refinement and very little actually comes into the cabin. We've noticed that Citroen has taken special effort to ensure that the cabin is damped and very little NVH comes in from the engine. They've taken extra measures for it under the hood and at the firewall, and they've paid dividend because this car feels very, very smooth to drive. Now, in-gear acceleration is good and there is very little turbo lag that you can notice, and that's something that we've come to appreciate with a small displacement turbocharged engine, because the turbo lag really is something that takes away from the driving experience. Of course, once we drive the automatic, we'll come back to you on how that is tuned, but as far as the manual is concerned, it is a pretty nice car to drive. But again, where Citroen shine is that ride quality, and that does not change on the Basalt. The Basalt at low speeds is almost sublime. There is very little transferring into the cabin, whether it's bumps or bad roads. At high speeds, there is a little bit of a disconnect at the steering wheel, but aside from that, it is a pretty nice car to drive. And that disconnect that you start feeling on the steering wheel is a little bit of a trade-off that you get from that almost magic carpet-like ride at low speeds. But that's something that you will learn to live with, and it's not something that is particularly dangerous or a deal breaker in that sense, but it's just something that you need to keep in mind when you remember the fact that this is one of those cars that is so comfortable to drive in the city. Now, of course, we will head to the back seat and I will tell you what it's like from the second row of seats of the Citroen Basalt. Now, traditionally, the problem with SUV coupes has always been the second row and the fact that the sloping roofline meant that there was no room at the back. But that is not the case with the Basalt. As you can see, the front seat is set to my driving position and I'm 6'1", and there's plenty of knee room still left for me. Along with headroom, the sloping roof almost doesn't take away from any of the space. You get 900 millimeters of knee room at the back on the Basalt, and that really sets it apart. This interior is a really nice place to be. Of course, because this is the manual variant, you don't get the features in the back seat like the adjustable squab or the adjustable headrest, but that is something you can look forward to if you buy the top-end automatic version of this car. You also get your own set of rear AC vents and 2 USB Type A points which you can use for charging your phone and devices, and you also get this really nice storage behind the seat as well as a cup holder on the side. Overall, the second row is not a bad place to be, and that is really saying something when it comes to an SUV coupe. And that was our review of the new Citroen Basalt. If you liked the review, as always, don't forget to smash that like button. It means so much to us as creators. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed to the AutoToday channel, this is your chance to do that now. Now, we've told you how the Basalt looks, we've told you how it drives, but the crux of this review will, of course, be the pricing. We hope that Citroen prices it aggressively, considering the fact that it does have a naturally aspirated engine on offer. But that is something that we will see in the weeks to come. So stay tuned to AutoToday, where we will reveal the prices, and we leave a link once the prices are out in this review as well. But overall, just as a standalone product, I think the Basalt has what it takes, not only in terms of its presence and the way it looks, but I think it's a pretty nice car to drive as well. And overall, it's a very cohesive, comfortable family car that looks the part. And I think that is what is going to set apart this SUV coupe segment that we're seeing forming in the mass market in India. Thank you so much for watching. This is Didi signing off.